Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're going to piece together a puzzle, the modern United Kingdom. We're going to push past the stereotypes and use the facts to build a real snapshot of what the UK looks like right now. So let's just dive right in with a big question, one that sounds simple but has a really complex answer. What is the United Kingdom today? For a place so many of us feel we know, the reality is a story of huge, constant change.
To put it simply, the UK of today would be almost unrecognizable to someone from 100 years ago. It's a nation that has been totally reshaped, especially in the decades after World War II, forging a society that's more multicultural and is, well, always evolving.
To really get a handle on the UK, you have to understand one thing right up front. It isn't just a single country in the way you might think. It is, and this is key, a nation of nations.
The United Kingdom is actually a political union of 4 separate countries, and each one has its own really deep history and its own unique identity. We're talking about England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and understanding this is the foundation for everything else.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's actually put this nation of nations on the map. Where is everything, and what does that tell us about the country's physical scale?
To get a sense of its size, just imagine this journey, starting way up at John O'Groats, right on the northern tip of Scotland, and traveling all the way down to Land's End in the southwest of England. That's a trip of about 870 miles, or 1,400 kilometers, and it covers this incredible variety of landscapes along the way.
And of course, each of these 4 nations has its own capital city, which acts as a hub for its culture and, in many cases, its own government. So while London is the capital of England and the UK as a whole, you've also got Edinburgh, Cardiff, and Belfast, which are huge cultural and political centers in their own right.
And it's not just about the capitals. So much of the UK's character is really defined by its other major cities. You've got the industrial powerhouses like Manchester and Birmingham in England, the shipbuilding legacy of Glasgow in Scotland, or the coastal hubs like Swansea in Wales. Every single one adds its own unique flavor.
Okay, so we've got the geography down, but a country is so much more than a map. It's its people. So let's turn to the story of the over 62 million individuals who call the UK home.
And wow, what a story that is. It's a story of dramatic, you might even say explosive growth, especially over the last couple of hundred years.
Just look at this timeline for a second. Back in 1600, we're talking about just over 4 million people. By 1801, it had doubled to 8 million. But then the Industrial Revolution kicks in. By 1901, the population had skyrocketed to 40 million, and by 2010, it had passed 62 million. That is just an incredible transformation.
But here's the thing. That population isn't spread out evenly, not even close. The UK is heavily weighted towards England. A staggering 84% of the entire population lives there. And as you can imagine, that demographic imbalance has a massive impact on everything from politics to the economy.
There's another huge demographic shift happening too, and that's the fact that people are living much longer. Thanks to better healthcare and living standards, the UK now has a record number of people over 85. This aging population is raising some big questions for the future of things like state pensions and the National Health Service.
Now, let's look beyond the numbers. What's the actual character of this society? Well, there are 2 words that are just absolutely essential to understanding the modern UK: diverse and equal.
A huge piece of the UK's modern identity comes from the immigration that took place after the Second World War. It's created a truly multicultural nation, especially in the big cities, with communities whose roots stretch to literally every corner of the globe. In fact, today, nearly 1 in 10 people has a parent or grandparent who was born outside the UK.
And this social transformation has happened inside the home too. That once really rigid divide between the roles of men and women, it's largely dissolved. Today, the reality of shared careers, shared childcare, and shared household duties isn't the exception. For millions, it's the norm.
And this isn't just a social trend, It's a shift that is baked right into the law. In the modern UK, equality is a guaranteed legal principle, making sure that men and women have the same fundamental rights in their careers, their finances, and their family lives.
Okay, for our final section, let's zoom in on a couple of the practical, everyday details of life in the UK. Let's talk about what people speak and what they spend.
Now, you're going to hear English everywhere you go, and in countless different regional accents, but that is definitely not the whole story. The UK's linguistic landscape also includes these incredible historic languages, like Welsh, which is a living, breathing part of daily life in Wales.
And you've also got the Gaelic tongues that you can still hear in parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, connecting the present to a really deep past.
When it comes to money, the official currency is the pound sterling. You've got your coins and your notes, and there are 100 pence in £1. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, not exactly. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. If you travel around the UK, you might just notice something a little different about the cash in your pocket.
And here it is. Both Scotland and Northern Ireland actually issue their own unique banknotes. Now, they might look different, but they have the exact same value as the Bank of England notes, and they're accepted as legal currency right across the entire UK. It's a fantastic everyday example of that whole nation of nations idea in action.
So let's just pull all that together for a second. We've seen a union of 4 distinct nations, with a population that has grown at this incredible rate. We've seen a society that's legally built on the principles of diversity and equality. And we've seen how that unique identity shows up in everything, from its languages to the actual cash people use.
And that brings us to the end. We've built a snapshot of the UK based on the facts as they are right now. But if we've learned anything, it's that the UK is a country defined by constant change. Which leaves us with one final thought. What will its story be tomorrow?